right, let's
So,
let's let's jump
let,
into it.
yeah, let's go to our current customer today. We already half an hour.
Yeah, we didn't even do our
Just,
intro.
yeah, we even didn't do our intro. So,
We should at least acknowledge Blackfire.io for sponsoring this episode of Load in the Loop. I'm Eric, the CEO and co-founder of Mage Mojo. We specialize in Magento hosting for uh, everyone, large and small. And I'm here with my co-host, Ivan.
hello, my name is Ivan. I'm one of performance firefighters. I run my own consultancy business here in the Netherlands. I help merchants, big and small, to solve performance issues in Magento 2, as well as Magento 1, as well as just PHP applications. And very big thanks to our sponsor Blackfire for sponsoring us and helping in profiling our current customer of Mage Modules that we're gonna review today on our show. Hey Eric, how are you doing? How was your Black Friday and Cyber Monday experience?
Doing good, doing good. We did really well. Stratus scaled to handle all the load that came at it. It was rock solid and stable. All the customers are happy, and some of them grew really, really well, made a lot of money. So everybody's happy, and we're happy, and no fires. My team's happy. They're not spending late nights and being stressed out. So that's always a good thing. So very well. How was yours?
Yeah, mine was a little bit stressful. I had to deal with one of nasty Magento core bugs in live in production on a Black Friday. One of my customers got a lot of ghost orders, and that resulted in actually them putting down advertisement
What's
because
a
of
ghost
that.
order?
Because of
What's a
that.
ghost order?
Yeah, so the ghost order, it's the order that is paid but not exists in Magento. So that's why it's called ghost order, because yeah, transaction is over there on payment provider side and it's not in Magento.
This customer paid you, but now they're never going to get their stuff, and then that's gonna. Oh my God, it's a chargeback nightmare and a customer service nightmare.
Yeah, so they had a lot of those orders. I can't tell the name of the customer because yeah, it doesn't make sense. But from point of view of explanation of the problem, I already submitted actually an issue to Magento and a little bit of explanation what happens over there. But in general, what struggles me that no one actually did a performance test of Magento 2 between releases with enabled cart price rules. And if any of Magento core developers, would run this load test, they would see immediately what is the problem, because it was very obvious when I found out what was the actual deal over there. So in general, someone like in 2018 added a piece of code that wrapped all the sales operation in transaction. And it means that on MySQL, every single database query that was happening between beginning transaction and committing the transaction was acquiring a lock for the time of this transaction. So if someone updates a table during after the placing an order, let's say they want to update sales rule. That's something that actually was a problem in our case. So Magento updates a sales rule after you place an order to update the count of times sales rule is used. And when the sales rule is used, it means if it's the side-wide sales rule, like let's say over a particular amount of total, you apply a free shipping. Very common one, right? So if you order more than X, then you get a free shipping. And that specific sales rule was used almost on every single order during that peak moment of sales. And because of that sales rule code in Magento, we were unable to process more than one order at a time, because every single transaction was trying to update the same record in the same table, and that same record was locked every single time, and it was just a nightmare from point of view of experience of the customers, because I saw New Relic traces of 50 seconds plus for place order actions, and we also had a lot of orders missing, really, because of that nasty bug. So the problem was that someone in 2018 merged a pull request from a community as a contribution that was trying to fix inconsistencies in stock levels. So
It was inconsistent stock levels was the okay. That's the catalyst of why somebody created the PR.
Yeah, yeah. So the problem was that someone thought that, hey, when you place an order, and if order doesn't come through, Magento were not using atomic weight to deduct the stock, and because of that, the stock could go into negative values and would not be accurate anymore in Magento if you have too many concurrent orders place operations. Yeah, so developer decided, yeah, wrapping in transaction it kind of makes sense from point of view of developer, but this is a very terrible idea from point of view of scalability of the system, because it means that every single order that updates the same stock record at the same time is gonna wait for that transaction to finish. And the place where transaction was added also is wrong, because it was wrapping the complete order placement operation in Magento backend. So it means it included all the calls to third-party payment systems, all the internal updates of counters in Magento, and if you don't have async email sending, it would also wrap async email sending as well. So in some cases, you can imagine a situation when before committing a transaction, you would have to wait till your email gets delivered to the final SMTP server. That
Oh my gosh.
can be a very long process, and in that case, you might just lose MySQL connection, so your transaction is rolled back, but the email with the order already received by the customer. So this is another kind of edge case that could happen, but no one sends nowadays orders, emails.
I have seen talk of people who have moved the order placing process out into asynchronous operations and into queuing. Is there anything publicly available to do that, or?
Magento supports it out of the box. So in Magento, there is out of the box cron job. So it's kind of asynchronous process, because you still have to run this cron job every X minutes, and it should do it per customer order. So it means
That's just email though, right?
Yeah, it just email.
I mean the whole order processing.
Oh yeah, it's actually was funny, like when I posted about this issue, a lot of people said, "Yeah, but like there is a synchronous API and so on." But in the end, these APIs they actually use absolutely the same code behind the thing. So it just calls synchronous API of Magento, and just lets you query the completion. So that's the nature of asynchronous API endpoints of Magento. So you can call the synchronous API, and then you can query back, hey, is my call completed or not? So technically, there is no difference from point of view of implementation. It's still the same synchronous API, just accessed through a different layer. And yeah, but when I just faced this problem, it hit so hard, like I was really frustrated at that point, and I was thinking like, yeah, it cannot be that bad, but
It's
in the end,
interesting that the other people haven't caught that. Like the other people, maybe the people are seeing it, they just didn't understand why it was happening. Because it's the catalog. It's having at least one catalog price rule, which I would think everybody's using. So that's kind
yeah,
of.
I think no one hit this part of the code before Black Friday. I think a lot of people got it, because I got even messages in LinkedIn after I posted this issue from merchants who were telling, hey, we have seems kind of a
Oh,
sim. We
2018, people haven't probably hadn't upgraded to the point where that was actually available, they were
Yes.
still versions behind. And this is the first big shopping season that they would have got to the point where it was in their code base. Okay, yeah.
And like it's a time bomb. You know, if you release this kind of changes without any performance validation, like it just gonna hit hard because uh, if if I wouldn't find this issue, out there, probably core developers would not know about it because at the same time, like late night, I was debugging this code. I found the problem. I wrote it to all the architects of Magento. They responded very quickly and they acknowledged that there's a problem. They right away started to roll it out to their cloud offering. So to make sure that their current cloud customers don't suffer from this problem as well. But it's kind of strikes me, that no one tried to test it before. So
Yeah, it's been a little bit um, not contentious, but or suspicious. Those are not the right words. But we've talked about this on Twitter, like with regard to the marketplace. Are there like really load tests being run and performance tests? Because you had a good comment, like, well, if there were, like MSI would have just set off the alarm bells and sirens because that was obviously huge
yeah,
performance degradation. So
actually about MSI. So during the last recording, we didn't have it yet, but I actually built an MSI implementation for this customer. We really got their time to first bytes for all the dynamic operations below 600 milliseconds. No matter how many products in the card you have, we've had I run some tests with 10 configurable products in the card, and with the implementations that I did, I just replaced all the service models of MSI with the ones that were preloaded on afterload of product collections of Magento. So instead of doing queries, for every single product, every single time and it does it, I just did it once, and there was only 4 database queries per operation. Let's say if you want to add to the cart, it was doing this 4 database queries once for all the products, and then it just reduced the time from 4 seconds to below 600 milliseconds on those kind of slow queries.
so this merchant, you load tested them before Black Friday, right? That
Yeah,
you were doing load testing on them.
yeah, we've seen this problem with sales card, but it was not as severe. We decided, not, yeah, looks like there is some kind of an update. Maybe we should look into it, but it didn't. Yeah, we were able to process more orders than we were processing before. But the problem is that during the load test phase, it was not the same as the live scenarios, because in live scenarios, your payment APIs might be slower than you expect.
So you're testing in a sandbox. Okay. So I mean, with that in mind, how would Magento themselves be able to build load tests that would have detected that issue? I mean, can they? Is that possible to do?
Yeah, as I say before, like we did it with a sandbox environment of the payment provider. So we did this load test, but the problem was that we were unable to hit the same limits as in live system, because in live system, there's also other parts gets involved into the payment transaction, because then the PSP has actually to contact the bank of the card where the card was issued in order to charge a credit card for a particular amount during the order placement operation, and it takes more time than when you actually do it with the sandbox environment where it just returns true or false predefined. But we still saw during the load test in New Relic, we still saw that updating sales quote takes a lot of time. We even created a ticket for that to look at it afterwards because we were short on time. But yeah, it struck us into the gut on a Black Friday. So we knew about that issue, that it happens, but we didn't know that it's actually wrapped in a transaction. I just saw like, yeah, seems like the update of the sales code is a problem. So we have to create some kind of an event log for quote item counts, and then just process it in the cron job. But in general, yeah, it was a little bit tough. But
Okay, well, hopefully Gento will like put a delay or something in their own sandbox in order to add time there to make it more realistic. Because I mean, load testing is hard. I mean, let's be honest. Like we do it here. Like when we do a new build of Stratus, we'll spawn up 100 test stores with varying performance profiles, and honestly, it's nothing like what the workloads we see when we go into production on a new build. It's load
yeah, it's
testing is hard.
a lot. Testing is very tough, and I can second that. So the problem is what I saw. First of all, that Magento 2 actually changed the order flow from Magento 1. When in Magento 1, we always tried to save the order before we were placing the PSP operation. So we would save the order with any other entities related to the order, like quote and so on, before we actually charge a customer credit card, because we wanted to make sure that no, how do I say it? We wanted to make sure that in case if item becomes unavailable, we wanted to make sure that the first customer who buys an item fins, and the other one receives notifications, hey, you cannot complete your purchase because, you know, the product went out of stock. And the scenario of product going out of stock still stays in Magento, but now they also changed the payment flow. So now they place an order before they save an order. So it means that transaction even happens before their so payment transaction happens before they actually deduct an actual stock from an order, and that's why someone decided to take a look why the stock becomes minus in some points, because there was cases, you know, when you could submit concurrently. So that's why I created for one of my customers back in 2018. I was creating an asynchronous stock service for one of the customers where I built a complete event-based, event sourcing-based stock system that has an atomic stock deduction on the purchase. So when you purchase something, there is an asynchronous application which is responsible for a particular range of SKUs, and it deducts the quantity in memory instead of doing it on every single item concurrently. So it actually scaled very well. More than 3,000 of stock operations per second were possible to achieve in such a way. And we didn't face, you know, this issue with negative stock ever. But this is very complex solution to apply to every single situation in Magento core. So it's not something that, you know, is possible to implement in a system when you have so many different customizations and so on. So you have to build it kind of special use case for specific stock configuration of the merchant. I can't do anything of that, unfortunately. You know, uh, in general, yeah, it's cool customer, but I can't do it. So, but in general, what I can tell you is that after fixing the transaction issue and running a load test, and as well actually moving quote sales rule deductions into event log, I was able to do only on two front-end nodes. Two front-end nodes that are size of C5 X large. I was able to place more than 200 orders per second. Oh, sorry, per minute. Not per second, per minute. Eight vCPUs. yeah, so then in general, it was possible much more on the actual production stock. So we really were at the limit of 40 orders per minute during the sale, and it was because every single order was taking a long time to place, so everything was queued up. So it means like um, you were able to place order, let's say, once in 3 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, we saw one customer's pretty high volume here, but again, like you, I can't say too much about them. They were pretty high. They had a doorbuster, and we hate doorbusters because if it's an email, we'll be like, all right, like at least just scatter it or spread it out over 15 minutes and just send it in segments. But when you have a doorbuster, like, and there's a countdown on the site, and then it was like a perfect storm. They have a doorbuster. They have limited they have limited inventory, so the customers know there's going to be very limited stock because it's all handmade custom stuff, and then but they only run sales one time a year, and their fan base is just absolutely rabid. And yeah, but they held up on Stratus, which was good. So I guess we got lucky and with no ghost orders. So
Yeah, I think a lot of merchants probably think about it as a fluke, but I can tell for sure that before that, this merchant also had the ghost orders, but it was happening just randomly.
yeah, the randoms are the worst. Random bugs to
Yeah, and
figure out.
it this is actually what was the reason behind it. So uh, just never place an order, the full order transaction into the database transaction, because you would it will backfire a lot in a real production system. It just doesn't make sense. I also started a Twitter thread about it, and I created some, yeah, never place an order before saving an order, right? Or never place a payment before saving an order, and multiple times.
Was your patch accepted? Is that going to come out in a future release, do you think?
It I raised an issue. I didn't submit a pull request because first of all, this kind of a thing, like, you can safely apply a patch if you are using MSI, because in MSI there is different stock deduction mechanism that is inconsistent anyway, so it doesn't affect much, you know, how the stock is deducted in MSI. But with catalog inventory, I couldn't just apply this patch and hope that everything works, because the pull request originally, it also modified the logic inside of catalog inventory module of Magento that would prevent a lot of people from placing properly orders if they just apply a patch. So that's why in my issue I write that only if you have MSI enabled, you can apply this quick patch. So basically, yeah, MSI is slow, and this issue is terrible as well. But you cannot quickly fix issue with MSI. But if you have MSI, you can quickly fix this issue with the transaction. So kind of a trap.
We saw 2,200 orders in 2.5 hours. Does that work out to be? Get my calculator out. So, like, yeah, that's 14 a minute, I think. Although that's assuming everything's really smoothly and really. That's kind of a hard thing to track. Like, what metrics do you even use to? People always talk about Google real time users, but a Google real time users, the best I can find on that is like a session, and it's not even a regular session. It's like a 1 minute thing. So if somebody makes a call to the GA and it's a unique user, and then if they don't get another call within a minute, I think it is, that user's there. So it's, yeah, a lot of people think GA real time users.
The best one, I think, is New Relic from point of view of backend overload, because It has a real insight in number of requests per minute from point of view of number of actually dynamic calls being processed by your system. And also for us, it's a good indication because we still have this issue with customer section load in Magento. That Magento still triggers on every single every single cached page. It still triggers backend call to Magento endpoint in order to gather some dynamic data about the customer. And that specific call can tell you precisely how much actual real users with the real browsers are actually on your website right now, just by measuring number of customer section loads. But I advise to actually not execute those requests. I'm working right now with some of my customers on building this customer section load cache guard, and it's going to be released as open source module.
Oh yeah, we talked about that before. That's the cookie thing. Check the cookie, and if it hasn't changed, don't load it.
Yeah, so it's going to be an open source module, and yeah, then you won't have an accurate metric of how many actual users are on your website. But
yeah, I mean, I guess you could do Nginx requests per second. They're the Nginx stats page.
You can do it either on Fastly or Cloudflare. You also can monitor number of hits to the page.
Yeah, but translating hits into like requests a second and into a load test is. Actually, I had an article on that on our old blog, and because I'm really not a very good SEO person, we didn't move it over, and but it was the highest traffic entry point to our site ever, and it was on translating Google Analytics into like requests per second, using that into like your load tests and stuff.
And also, I think a lot of people just don't know what means request per second from point of view of end user, because number of users actually should be multiplied by number of resources you request from your server, right? So if you visit the homepage, you might have a lot of Ajax callbacks being executed on the homepage.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
They just hammer your server with the number of concurrent visitors you have.
We see that more and more with the Ajax calls. Yeah, and like a lot of the load test tools, they don't make the Ajax calls on the page. They just call the page. So you'll run a load test with just that, and it'll be like, yeah, it runs great. And then in production, you got all these Ajax calls that are being dynamically triggered.
I really get, kind of confused when people tell like PWA is gonna save us, because people think like, hey, if we just show a shell app first, we're gonna have a good performance for the end user. Yes, we're gonna have a better performance for the end user because user will see already some kind of design, everything being done, because it's gonna be statically built a page with all the CSS styles, everything that is needed to be shown to the end user. But still, you have to do all those dynamic calls through the AX and
the mini cart. And mini cart and your products.
It doesn't matter about the mini cart or anything else. Like I really confused. Like we have this issue right now with global warming and so on, and we should really minimize number of requests we actually do to servers. And what's cool about PWA is that you actually almost can reduce it to zero, but the current implementations of PWA doesn't take advantage of that. So
yeah, I don't know about that. I haven't really looked. We're supporting PWA, different solutions here, but like in terms of getting into all the nuts and bolts of it, I really haven't done that.
Yeah,
I did see your Twitter post on the GraphQL API. You were like, what is this? Because there was like a huge nest of objects. And you're like, nah, that's you could have just done this much simpler implementation of
it's we must give it credit to it because it's not a part of Magento Core, apparently. It's a part of custom built functionality on top of Magento PWA Studio. but they took an example how to implement it from actual category GraphQL endpoint of Magento. So the same thing if you would have to access a tree of all the subcategories, you would have to build the same kind of query because yeah, it's a recursive call, and it doesn't work well with GraphQL because GraphQL is meant to reduce your number of data you transmit from a backend, right? You if you don't need that data, you don't ask for it. So the basic idea to reduce this payload size, and as well the basic idea in GraphQL is that yeah, you can reduce version and step from your APIs because you can dynamically decide what you need to return because client asks from you which data it wants. But the problem with any recursive call is that you have to build a huge Christmas tree, how others named it in Twitter thread. Yeah, so you have to specify the deepest level in a tree in order to be able to get all the data you need. And the problem itself is that you return the tree structure itself. So if you would just refactor your structure into something that's more like, hey, we have child elements and we have parent elements, and we can just return, let's say, a new field called parent, where we just specify identifier of that parent element to which we want to apply it on the front end, and then we have just a list of items instead of a tree of items, and we can define it directly in a query itself, and then it just couple of lines of code on the front end receiving side just to reduce this collection into a tree. So you can write an array reduce where you specify the collection of items, and then you can specify the reducer callback, and this reducer callback will populate a tree or even build for you an object that you need from that collection itself, without traversing the tree itself on the front end, and without building this tree on the backend side as well, and without sending this long GraphQL queries. In general, I understand like why we are moving in direction of GraphQL. It's a nice and neat idea, but I see that GraphQL is implemented in places where it shouldn't. In some cases, when everything is going through a single endpoint, and the single endpoint reduces number of caching possibilities, because GraphQL queries they're very complex, and you have to build custom caching solutions for GraphQL queries that is gonna be tricky with and edge case location caching. Like for instance, if you'd like to use just normal Amazon cloud front, right? So if you want to use CloudFront, it's going to be very hard to create the rules for cacheable queries. You have to play around a lot with regular expressions in this case, and it's never a good thing to play around with regular expressions.
Yeah,
we already know.
So you decided to use regular expressions. Congratulations. Now you have two problems.
Yeah. So Eric, tell us about the customer.
Heavy Glare sunglasses. Been here for a while. And they've had quite a few performance issues. They have a lot of extensions, so they're definitely making the most of the extension marketplace and the available extensions, but that's creating a lot of problems for them. As you add in more extensions, you make things more complex and run into more problems. So we've been working with them to figure out, okay, what are the biggest bottlenecks that they have, and working with their developers. And I think they'd be a good example today because they still have quite a few things, and it's really hard to separate signal from noise when you have so many extensions, like which ones are the noisy ones, which Blackfire is really good for that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that they decided to get reviewed on the show today. So I heard that they were kind of happy to be included, right?
Yeah, they're excited.
Okay, so let's dive into this one. Oh, I see that it's a little bit stretched. I don't know why. Let's. Okay, I hope I can fix it real quick. Okay, now it's good. So let's start with the homepage. All right. So let's do disable aggregation always, and let's run a profile. So let's see how long it takes to generate a page on the homepage and what kind of results we're gonna see here.
That looks pretty quick.
Well, let's see what the final score from Blackfire is. They have a video on the homepage.
It was muted, right? When you
Yeah,
loaded it, it was muted. Okay.
yeah, it's muted, I think. So
By default, good.
by
Not like the
default,
news
it's
sites. That drives me crazy on the news sites, man. Like you hit the news site and the video plays, and then you scroll down the page thinking you're gonna scroll past the annoyance of it, and it minimizes into the bottom corner or the top corner and keeps playing. It drives me crazy.
so I already see a couple of issues here. So yeah, it takes 10 seconds to render a homepage, and they have at least more than half a second spent on input output from that 10 seconds. More than 350 milliseconds are spent on database operations, from which of them there is around 930 queries, right? And what bothers me is actually 17 HTTP queries. So let's take a look first into the HTTP queries and see what's happening.
That's a new one. What is that? Oh, Elasticsearch.
Yeah, so that's calls to Elasticsearch, and right off the bat, a musty heaviest product. So this is some kind of a musty database operation for Elasticsearch.
I'm not familiar with that one.
So 10 times they try to resolve what is the alias of the same index name. So this is right off the bat just tells us, hey, they could have done it once. They don't need to do it,
Yeah, why
every single time they
10
try
times?
to access the data.
Probably loop, huh?
Yeah. And another one, there is 5 calls to search. So probably they search some aggregates, because I saw on the homepage, right, they have this shop by or something like that. And this is probably using Elasticsearch in order to generate, the output, what's happening there. Probably it walks over the whole catalog. And
We were talking about that one on Twitter. The MSD Shopify is another one we see that causes a lot of performance issues for customers.
Okay, yeah, it definitely does here. So, and 2 times just hitting the base URL, probably just to check if it's alive. So, yeah, interesting. Okay, let's go. Let's go over into the other thing. So first of all, yeah, it makes sense to take a look what's happening over there. It is even without diving deep into this one. Oh, actually, here is very interesting thing. 7,000 calls to flatten params from deployment config. I didn't see this one before. This is kind of new one.
What is a flatten param?
It's the deployment config. And you see it tells us that it calls itself within itself.
Yeah, that's pretty.
And inside of it has also is array call. Yeah, this is kind of nasty, because this method exclusively takes 1.3 seconds. And there's a lot of them. And yeah, so the problem is why it loads this stuff on every single... Yeah, you see this deployment config load. It somehow doesn't preserve a loaded configuration. So this is kind of interesting why it happens, because I never seen this one before. So this is deployment configuration get. It sounds like something just doesn't cache it properly in memory. So the deployment config shouldn't be called 1000 times on a page, you know, because you're loading configuration every single time. And deployment config is something that is pretty much...
Oh, I think they do are using. So someone mentioned they were using files for cache.
I don't think it's a files problem. Do find one by data, do find one by data. So this happens when they try to call for finding a URL, and finding by URL. Oh yeah, so why we see it here, because first of all, yeah, they have this get table name being called this number of times, and this get table name internally calls this get deployment config, and the deployment config get somehow does this thing, but I've never seen it before in Magento 2 store. I've never seen this number of calls to this method. So either they're patched Magento core through patches. So I don't know what's happening over there. I cannot tell without looking at the code, but looks like there is a problem in that direction, because this one really takes a lot of time from the page load. Not as much as this number of database queries, of course, but in general, this is something uncommon. So let's take a look at the timeline view. Can I switch to the timeline view? Oh yeah, it's a little bit here now. Okay, so let's take a look at the timeline view. So here we see that the header container, something happens here. Top menu. Okay, so the top menu, smart wave, mega menu, looks like it's not cached. So as a quick fix, you know, it's possible just to wrap it in a cache itself, you know. But in general, I see here there's already submenu items, something happening here, and this particular menu module, actually it does load categories in a loop, actually in a tree. So because you have, you know, a lot of child categories, and they probably access, I can bet that they probably access some category attribute that they were unable to add to the original category loading process by specifying it on some event that is available in Magento resource. You can create an observer for that event, and you can add additional fields to be retrieved from a category itself in order to access the data from a category when you build the menu. But here, they're actually not doing it. They just decide, hey, we're just gonna load the category by ID. Yeah, so you see, get category model, load, blah, blah, blah. happens a query, then probably it happens a lot here. We just don't see it because probably it's quite fast. And again, there's the same things happening. There's about 6 and 1 millisecond. So I think there's a lot of category database queries. Let's open up the view details. Yeah, so here it is. That's what I meant. So there is 265 database queries related to every single category that is loaded separately. And apart from that, there is 600 and something calls to URL rewrite, probably to retrieve the same thing, also category URLs. However, those category URL rewrites, they are already available when Magento loads here. When Magento loads the flat category structure, we are getNodes method. It already contains URL rewrite. And if they would add a plugin after this load, getNodes and collect all the categories that have been loaded in a tree, they would be able to access this data without going into every single category and loading it separately, accessing URLs through a separate model and so on, because this data is already available over there. So the problem is...
This is coming from Anawave's mega menu, right? So
no, it's not Anawave. Anawave has nothing to do here.
Okay.
Yeah, we have
this is their own top menu.
SmartWave module.
Oh, I thought. Oh, SmartWave mega menu. Oh, I thought Anawave was smart menu. Okay.
So let's take a look at the rest of the things, right? So now we have some labels as well. So yeah, we found out that the menu itself, it does a necessary load operation. So in general, just rendering the menu could take max 100 milliseconds if all the issues are fixed, because basically here there's just some load in the loops happening, and that's why it takes 1 and 2 seconds. But in general, it could be reduced just to this load call. That's one thing. Another thing, here we have this Amashti shop by that does a lot of calls to Elasticsearch to resolve some aliases and to do some searches for dynamic blocks or whatever it is they use. So Amashti has own Elasticsearch module, apparently. Didn't know about it. Yeah.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah, and they seems didn't optimize it. So here, why we see actually 17 requests to Elasticsearch.
Oh, that's the shop by. Okay, so shop by, I've seen that before, but I guess you can connect shop by to ES, which is what they did.
Yeah, and in general, it just added some additional stuff. And then they also have this price slider, and this one also does some weird query on a table that I would never use in frontend. So
what extension is the price slider?
This is shop by. It's
that's coming out of shop by.
It's the same thing in Amashti thing. So they have this slider PHTML. So this is a slider for price. And what they do here, they have this terrible query. I already see it. They are doing a query to catalog product entity decimal. They receive a value. And they order by value. So product entity decimal is not indexed by value column, and it's never gonna be indexed by value column because this is EAV table. They were supposed to use price index table in this case in order to find ranges, But as I understand, they just try to find what is the maximum price by basically asking MySQL, hey, can you please find the price value for a product in this category? For all products in this category, can you return me a list of those prices? And then order them by value, and then let's say limit 1-1. So for MySQL, it still needs to materialize all the records in a decimal table on temporary table in order to order by, and then it returns the top value from that list. What they could have done, they could have write a query that would do it, just from the price index table, where they could just join price index with the category product index table as well, and then just take a max value from max price. And that's it. And it would be very fast query without even hitting the files and this, because I think the price index table has all the needed columns for filtration and grouping already in indexed columns. So MySQL wouldn't even have to do a table scan. And in this case, it does table scan, it does table sort, it does all the nasty things. So this single query runs 100 milliseconds. And 100 milliseconds, it's forever in point of view of MySQL queries.
Yeah, and crushing the database, full table scan.
Yeah, so you can imagine that it's not scalable from point of view of high load. And then we see another HTTP request to get the category information from Elasticsearch, and then probably also load the product, and also probably then also load category collection as well, to load all the data for the category filter. So again, probably there is some kind of unoptimized query, because it takes a lot of time to load this collection. So let's see what else here. Then we have another block in layered navigation. So yeah, in total, this block with layered navigation takes 6.5 seconds on the homepage. And here we have
and that's still all shot by?
Yeah, it's still all shot by. So here is another one called labels, and this labels is rendering children categories, and this children category is probably doing some load in a loop, because it renders a category block, and then it does another label render, and inside of it we have other stuff happening. And I think those labels PHTML, it does call it recursively into other child categories or blocks. And I think over there is some database operation happening or something, because it takes painfully 1.6 seconds to do so. So and there is more of them. So you see render children items, and it takes all the time. So basically, this massive show by functionality could be reduced probably to one database operation, and then just render it very quick without this loading loops. So majority of the time, loading loops could be avoided by just doing a data preload upfront before you actually try to render something. And in this case, they do kind of methodology in development where you just do lazy load the data that you need. But in this case, you have to do a prefetch of the data before you're rendering this kind of blocks that might contain data that you might need from a database. So instead of doing, lazy loading of this data, you should actually preload the data for this block in advance.
How much total time does MSD shop by taking on this page?
This labels template is
no, MSD shop by, like the whole, like just having MSD shop by on this site is taking how much total time?
Yeah, so basically this is 6.62 seconds.
How I mean, how can anybody run a store with that extension? Like,
Seems like again some sound issue.
I think it's Zoom. I'll switch it again. Is that okay?
Yeah, now I hear you.
Zoom. So how does anybody run a site using Amnesty ShopBuy then? It's
I think it depends on the number of data you have, because if you have small data set, probably MySQL keeps everything already in memory or even in query cache, and then everything responds quickly. But if you have reasonable data set, like if you are not selling, let's say 4 or 5 or 6 products, then you will see those issues, right? You will see that queries taking longer. If you have any kind of a reasonable sales volume as well, like your other tables gets populated a lot as well, so your queries became more noticeable. And yeah, in general, also sometimes developers just put cache on top of it and just deal with it in such a way. But in the end, when some update comes from ERP or whatever system, they have to flush a cache, and this cache will trigger a lot of users being frustrated in waiting for a page being generated. So in general, what I see here, I know a lot of companies use ShopBuy extension, but majority of the cases, ShopBuy can be replaced with something like Smile Elasticsearch.
So you can do the same ShopBuy filtering with
because
with ES, Smile ES.
Yeah, so basically what they do here, they just output filters from root category. So they just, let's say, if you would just search a website with empty query, and if, let's say, can you search actually with empty query in Magenta? Yeah, not by default, but let's say I just, most popular search terms is one actually. And seems like I'm hitting them hard right now. And look. Someone tries to execute some nasty thing here, Someone tries to do SQL injection.
Okay.
And apparently they received some search results. But yeah, so if you just execute, let's say, just sunglasses, right? So it's probably going to show us all the products in the catalog, right? And this is basically the same filters that they show on the homepage. So as soon as you have just any module and you would just render a block with, if you have the Smile Elasticsearch, you can just render this layered navigation filters on the homepage if you like. So it's not a complicated thing, to do. You just create queries for aggregates from Elasticsearch for those specific filters. So ShopBuy is not a rocket science. So basically, you just need to allow to have a page where you have, instead of regular category like this, like glasses or activities or whatever this customer has, you just need to have a root category as a base where you can just select filters of layered navigation, and that's all. And then you just go to that page. Let's say you can call it all products or whatever, and it's already functionality that was implemented by dozens of merchants with a standard set of functionalities. It's not something that is very complex to build yourself.
Yeah, I just confirmed they have MySQL query cache on.
Yeah, so basically, yes, this one takes majority of the time on the page rendering of the homepage. And it also means, that every single time when someone buys something on a web store, the homepage gonna be cleared because the filters needs to get invalidated, right? So they have very low cache hit ratio for the cases when someone purchases something, and the homepage cache just gets nuked, and it's never gonna be fast to access the homepage. So let's go into the category page then, right?
Yeah. So the advice then on the homepage is just get rid of shop by. Like query cache isn't gonna help, and I don't know what optimizations.
As a quick fix, they can just put it into cache. So just
how would you do that?
Just put the whole block into cache.
Oh, okay. So that whole block's probably got cacheable false, and they need to just remove that.
No. It's not has a cacheable false. It's probably not cached by a musty module itself. What they need to do, they just need to add appropriate cache keys and so on.
Well, they're using Varnish.
They can then cache it in ESI as well. As ESI includes, they can specify TTL for this block in layout definition, and then this block will get included as ESI call to Varnish, and then Varnish gonna cache that block separately. But right now, it's actually rendered within the page. And then it means that they can actually also flush this block separately as well if they need to update their category structure. So they can be pretty aggressive on the caching technique of that block. So here we have a category page. Let's run a profiler. I disable aggregation right away because I see it probably will take a lot of time if we just do 10 runs of a profiler. So there is this strange issue we've noticed at the beginning, right, with deployment config. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the code to tell what's happening over there. But I've never seen this problem before.
What information do you get from deployment config? Like what's in there that could be accessed?
Yeah, deployment config is just something that you have in your file system. When you install Magento creates this env.php file. And basically, deployment config, it's actually your env.php file.
Okay.
So, category page also has a lot of database queries, and takes 7 seconds, 21 queries to Elasticsearch. So usually when you have Elasticsearch implementation, you have maximum 3 HTTP requests on a page in order to render the data you need. At least Elasticsearch from Smile, it has only 3 queries to Elasticsearch to get all the data that is needed. It doesn't do it, 21 times. And here it does it a lot. Here as well, if we open a timeline, let's go to the timeline view right away. Header, sections, and what is it? Top menu. So top menu is not cached. As I see, it's not even ESI cache. So if they use Varnish, it means that their top menu is not cached in Varnish. It's cached within. It's not cached in Varnish separately. It's cached within every single category page, every single product page, every single home CMS page, and anything. Like if they let's say change the name of one category, the whole varnish cache gonna be nuked for them, because Magento collects every single entity ID that is rendered on a page and edits into the cache tags of the page that is being cached by varnish. And because their menu is rendered on every single page and included into every single page cache, it means that it's just gonna be clearing all website cache completely when they change just single category name. So this is inefficient. So definitely they can create a TTL attribute around their menus that they're rendering, and it would automatically cache this block via ESI include in varnish. And again, we have load in a loop here. And it's again swatches, right? So Magento swatches.
Go into the product repository.
Yeah, so swatches are called here. However, I don't see actual color swatches. Do you see them? I don't.
Yeah.
So
no, if you click see details, that takes you to the product page,
yeah,
right?
it takes me to the if I click quick view, it does an Ajax call, and pretty slow Ajax call, right? So yeah, so they don't use swatches on a category page, so they just can disable them. Actually, by the way, I found out that Magento already have a configuration option to disable swatches on category page.
Oh, really?
But this configuration option is not available as an actual option in configuration. So it exists in the code base when they render layout, but it doesn't exist as an actual field that you can change in admin panel.
Oh, so how do you change it then?
Direct database query in core config data
table. Oh, shit.
Yeah, so basic fix of that one, just create a module or fix it in the core by adding this configuration option into system XML of the swatches module to give a possibility to enter this field yes or no, because there is just a simple flag that you can enable, and then the swatches functionality won't be enabled. Actually, I can show you right away where it happens. Let's go into Magento.
So if we go back to the other customers that we reviewed and we just toggle that in the database, that would probably significantly speed them up.
Yeah, definitely. If they don't use swatches on category pages, at least swatches on product listing, not in layered navigation, but on actual product itself. So you can disable that functionality. Yeah, Magento swatches, I think.
Wait, that toggles it for both the product page and the category. You can't just toggle the category.
It actually
it's just category.
It's just category. So basically here you have system configuration, right? So this is show swatches in product listing, right?
Yeah.
Actually here I see it, catalog frontend show swatches in product list, but I was trying to set it from the command line, but it was actually complaining that it's impossible to do. So let's open up the layout file, and in a layout file for, let's say, category view, yeah, so you just can set show swatches in product list to 0.
Okay.
And then it's just gonna disappear. But I think the problem is that probably the configuration field has a different name in system XML and here. This is probably the problem, because I remember I was trying to run this set config through the Magento, and it was complaining that there is no such configuration option that I was trying to specify. So let's quickly see. Actually, I was supposed just to use this control click, and let's go back to the layout file. So the layout file catalog frontend shows swatches in product list, and here it is Show swatches and product list. Yeah, the same. But why? Why it didn't work? I don't know. But basically, I just turn this option to 0, and it should fix the problem right away.
Oh man, yeah. Let's get that extension out. Make that easy.
No. It's already available out of the box. So I don't know why I didn't.
But you couldn't. Yeah, but you can't set it from the command line, and you have to do what you just insert that variable into the.
I don't know. Maybe I was, not doing it correctly, or maybe it's actually. Let's take a look at 2.3.3. Okay. Here it looks a little bit different. Okay. Okay, so catalog frontends show swatches and product list. Okay. And here as well, maybe. Oh, here it is. it's fixed in 2.4. That's why I'm a little bit confused. Yeah, so
maybe they watched the show.
Show swatches. No, it actually it's still there, but
no, it's still there.
It's just about the tooltip. So yeah, the configuration option is there, and you can just disable it. So if you go into catalog frontend and then show swatches and product list, just turn it to 0, and then it won't execute these terrible database queries that we see here when you render. Oh wait, where it is? Here. When you render the product list, it won't execute these terrible database queries. So the Adam horse supply can actually just go into admin panel and probably disable it. And this happens actually on every single product. Here it just does this check for the data, and if the product has some data in it, it tries to load it, and it takes some time. So. And then we have, again, the alert view, and then we have the brands, and brands doing some database operations that is quite slow. Let's see what's happening over there. Oh, top menu. This is crazy. So you see, before get HTML on brands, so it's probably part of this Amasti module that renders this this shop by options. Somehow they use categories. Oh, it's even not Amasti. It's IB-nap category side block categories collection get HTML, and this is actually using the top menu block of Magento in order to render these categories on the left side. Yeah, this is bad. So these brands, this thing is actually a category list that actually loads all the categories in the shop and just renders them, apparently. So at least what I see from the profile. Yeah, let's go back. Here we have it. Yeah. So brands. And again, another category init items, shop by, get items count. So this is it. Another call to Elasticsearch. I don't know what it does here. Probably it just tries to find how many products are available per each category. So basically, as far as I know, in Elasticsearch, you can access all the aggregates in one HTTP request for a specific view you are trying to access. And here, what they do it for every filter. They do an HTTP call into Elasticsearch in order to get the aggregate data instead of doing it for all the facets that they have at once. So they basically just waste time on Elasticsearch side. And seems like here as well some swatches getting rendered, but this is related to the database. So here at least I don't see HTTP calls, but probably we will see it somewhere later again. So okay, here we have another one, right? We have our JSON LD. So this one is the structured data, but this time this is a structured data provided by Amasti. So rich data, the one that returns back our products, and every single product to render takes a lot of time. And most probably because it tries to render every single product separately, all the product data, but as we were talking one of the last times that this structured data, according to the Google guidelines, should not happen on pages with multiple products. It should happen on final product page. You need to render prices, stock availability, and so on separate page, and not on a category page. On a category page, you can create a carousel type of structured data where you just create for Google information, hey, you can find this product by this URL, and you can find all the data for this product by this URL. But you cannot render offerings, you cannot render complete product details on category listings. So again, wrong implementation of SEO features by this JSON LD extension from Amasti. So SEO rich data. This one actually just wastes valuable time and resources on a server, because basically it could just render an array of data in JSON that would just point to the final product pages URLs, and that's all. But instead they prepare all that product data that takes IO time and some CPU time as well.
Yeah.
And the list product get identities, something that we know a problem from our review of Scriptco. And here we have another one, get markup HTML, and we have another structured data extension. So they actually use one extension for structured data that does redundant stuff, but as I see from, for instance, for MageWorks extension, this one, at least I don't see here. Oh, product data takes only 10 milliseconds. But could be that. Yeah, let's examine it in. Let's examine it in time view, and let's take a look at MageWorks. Oh yeah, get category. Okay, JSON. Okay, here we have the musty storage data, and another one is this one, yeah. So get marked HTML, get JSON category data, and let's see what it does call. It does call 21 time get product data. Okay, so get product data as well does the same issue. Yeah, so you see it does get offer data as well. So basically they have two extensions that add this JSON LD microdata on the page. So probably if I view the page source and I just scroll down, oh yeah, there's a lot of HTML here. So here we have application JSON LD one tag with information about the current website. Then we have another tag with product. And it's probably every single product shown as aggregate offer. Yeah, it sounds weird. So is it a block for every product here or what? I don't understand. So Adidas sunglasses. Here we have schema, type product, Adidas, Adilberia, half rim. Okay, so let's just search on a page source. How much times this product? Yeah. So here's what I was telling. Like you cannot have product on the category page. You can have.
This is actually hurting people's SEO, isn't it? Like doesn't it actually hurt?
It can hurt. It can hurt in a case if you don't show this product on the page, but at the same time, Google actually doesn't pick more than one item out of the product. So when Google indexes a page, it finds the first product type and it uses for SEO markup. So if someone types in some product, it might find it in the search results. Let's say they look for Adidas sunglasses, and then it would show a first found product on this category page. But Google actually not advises to put those kind of stuff on the category pages, because you want person to go to product page, not to a category page when they look for a specific product, right?
Yeah. I mean, I could see if somebody's searching for Adidas sunglasses, and I could see why you would want them to go to the category page to see all your Adidas sunglasses, but unless they said like a specific type of sunglass, and then you want them to go to the...
Yeah, but, well, let's just take a look at the search result of this customer, right? In the Google.
Yeah, actually, I want to Google Adidas sunglasses and see what I get.
So, and the site is Heavy Glare, right?
Yeah, heavyglare.com. So yeah, I mean, if I type in Adidas sunglasses, like I'm getting category page results. Adidas.com sunglasses, Adidas.com home.men. It's Amazon.com, SLP, Adidas sunglasses.
Is it actually... Yeah, so I don't see here any products, like... And if I go into shopping, yeah, on shopping, I don't see anything. And here you see Google even doesn't show the pricing information. Because probably it's an aggregate page, right? Because it's category page. No, it's product page. Okay, and this is the product that actually suggests me from the list. Okay, let's look specifically for this product on their website in Google, right? Let's do it. Okay, so no information about price, no information about stock availability.
Right.
Probably
right.
Google just decided, hey, we're gonna ignore this spam information in structured data. And yeah, I'm getting to the product page, but on the product page there is no, it doesn't show me a price from a product page on Google. And if I just search for this product,
Oh. Huh.
yeah, this is
Sponsored.
yeah, it's sponsored. If I go into shopping, no, it's gonna show me the European listings in Google Shopping itself. But yeah, I don't see structured data here either. So
Okay.
maybe.
So what are the biggest wins for these guys? What are like the top 3 things you would suggest they do?
Yeah, get rid of shop buy. Get rid of shop buy. Just use something that is already available for free in a community called Smile Elasticsuit. Just write a small piece of functionality that would render those slide navigation filters on the homepage for the whole root category. And yeah, I don't see something out of the ordinary in their functionality. So I don't see, complex filters or something like that. So it all looks simple.
Okay, and what if they can't get rid of that for whatever reason? Could they cache it? I think we were talking about an ESI.
Only on the homepage. But on the category page, it doesn't make sense because you will just blow up your Redis cache with the data that gets changed a lot. So it's also a little bit of a problem with Redis cache in Magento as well. Because did you actually know that Magento has a unique cache for every single product and every single category of layout?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
So what I usually do, I install a module that removes handles. If customer doesn't use widgets functionality of Magento, I always remove layout handles that are not required for rendering a page. Let's say product ID handle or category ID handle, and then I have layout cache per page type, not per page ID. So it's much more efficient and much more less time spent on rendering the other pages, and as well much more less Redis memory required to cache Magento.
Okay, what's the number two biggest performance
labels
improvement they could do?
So the labels module in ShopBuy. So something related to the labels in ShopBuy. Another one, replace the structured data module with something that actually will output something on a page only, not on every single category page. So yeah, here for instance, the right tag. So product on this page. And there's a lot of noise right now for this. There's a lot of noise on category page that probably gets ignored by Google.
Okay, and then the swatches. There's the
configuration option.
How would you suggest doing that? You would just do an override for that specific
just
file
check if you can actually just disable it in admin panel, because could be just a simple configuration option you can do. Okay, and let's just quickly look into the product page as well, what they have here. And here they also have some weird canonical page. Okay, so here we have it. We have another module that tries to get the Magento version on the front end. You see this canonical MageWorks SEO-based canonical URL module. It tries to get the Magento version to find the linked field to be used in a query to a database, probably to find the product URL in other languages. But this is completely redundant because Magento already provides for you entity metadata where you can access the link field name from the standard Magento models without relying on Magento version, because Magento version is actually not reliable source of the data in that matter, because you can also disable staging modules in Magento Commerce product yourself by using either Composer Replace or either using just standard module disable functionality. And then you won't have this catalog inventory modules. Oh, sorry, not catalog staging modules, but the extension will be broken because it doesn't know that this module is disabled. So they probably use Magento version and also Magento type, like either at enterprise or something, to verify what kind of field they can use for accessing the join of product ID to the URL. So yeah, it just triggers an unnecessary file operation by using the Composer components to check what is the current Magento version. So it's a problem in Magento extensions all the time, and I already have a handy module I apply for my customers. And what basically this module does, let me check if I can extract the image itself I was using. So let's see if I can create a link to a file, and let's see if I can open it here. Oh no, I cannot. Let's see if I can just copy the image and online image editor. Let's see if I can. Oh, I cannot do that. Okay. Past image from clipboard. Yeah. Great. So here's what I actually do usually for my customers. I just create a plugin around Magento version retrieval. I just hardcode the version as a string. That's all. and then all the performance issues are solved. Because basically this information just needs to be updated, when you upgrade to newer Magento version. But in general, the functionality itself is wrong in extensions that they check the Magento version in order to perform on functionality, because they should restrict it by using Composer version constraints, not by using the version check at the runtime. Because there's a lot of things that affect your environment apart from Magento version itself, and you need to depend on the actual module, let's say, that is installed in the system, and do some smarter logic over there. So this is eating up how much time? 200 milliseconds from the page in this case. sometimes
just to get the version.
just to get a version. Then there is also another one, the standard problem I see in Magento is the image configuration. It's uncached. This is I usually create a module that wraps this view read method with a cached plugin and caches the result of merging the files, because as soon as you try to access the type of the media attributes that are available for the images on the front end, Magento doesn't cache this data at all. It just hits directly file system, tries to merge all the files from all the modules, all the themes, and it's quite painful. So just removing that one reduces also some time. Here is actually a very interesting one. This get social product info, the SEO markup by MageWorks. They're using again the configurable. Oh, actually here it's probably not that bad, but yeah, it's at least interesting. Why we didn't see the load of the product before? Actually, we see a load of the product before, yeah. And we should have seen availability check before as well. So yeah, I just don't know why it happened. Oh, they have also some warnings being put into Magento log. They need to take a look at their debug log or system log of Magento and check what's happening there, because there could be some valuable information. Maybe some blocks cannot be rendered because there's some exception or an error. Yeah, in general, yeah, I see there's a lot of stuff happening. Do they use inventory? Looks like not. Let's take a look at the queries here. The queries here are, majority of them again related to categories. So the menu is the biggest abuser on product page as well. So as I said, move menu into varnish. And the rest of the things are not that terrible. There is not much big long database queries. Like, yeah, there is 8 times the call to product super attributes that indicates that 8 times the configurable product gets loaded in a loop. So I don't know why it's done over there like that, but looks like 8 times. Oh, sorry, it's not a product loaded in a loop. It's attributes. It's attributes of a configurable product, and it's done 8 times. It's a little bit out of ordinary query, so makes sense to investigate more for this customer. But in general, yeah, not too much of an issues. Yeah, the rest of the queries are not that much time spent on them. But here, yeah, it just menu just in your face, like 270 database queries. That's too much for a menu. And you could even cache it as a quick fix. But in general, yeah, also view form, yeah, it's probably rendering the add to cart form. This is the product details. A must X search. What is X search doing? Very weird. another collection gets loaded. I don't know what the collection is doing there, but JS init. JS init of what? What is the module? I don't see here in the chain. Maybe if I would have an access to the code base, I could just look in a PHP storm what this template is doing, from which module it comes. But yeah,
It's okay. It's a small part. It's a drop in the ocean of performance.
yeah, but on the product page, it matters because like 64 milliseconds on every single product. It adapts because the product is the least cached page that stays in cache, because a lot of chances that every visitor that visits the category page, yeah, it stays in the cache, but not many visitors visiting product page in order to get it in cache. And it means that the experience of loading a product page gonna be suffering from this one. And the view counter, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, so basically the biggest problem we see here is related to various actually blocks. So some kind of, oh, so this is probably configurable product. Oh, it's add to cart rendering, yeah. And then, wow, okay. PayPal shortcut observers. Let's see. No, it's good. I just thought maybe they have some kind of call to PayPal in order to render some buttons, because I saw it on one of the Magento shops. So it shouldn't be a problem here. And yeah, so the main problem here on this page, as I see from the timeline, right, it's, yeah, let's refresh the page. On the timeline here, we see that the original load of the product takes a lot of time. That extremely a lot of time, I can tell you for sure. I don't know why it happens, because, like 1.25, this is quite a while. Oh yeah, so probably there is some kind of option, array loading. What is this? Configure oh yeah, so this is configurable product attribute loading. So probably they have large configurable products, right?
Doesn't look like it. I mean, it's sunglasses. Like, what can you configure in a pair of sunglasses?
I think you can.
Colors?
No.
Like, I don't. Maybe just not this one.
Like I saw they have prescription-based sunglasses, right?
Yeah. You could probably get your prescription.
Yeah, so here it's not big of a deal, but let's say I'll go into the prescription ready category, right? So I just click here and I want to go to the page, and here I can select the prescription lenses. So this is actually an interesting page to profile. Let's just,
yeah.
Oh, wait a second. Abort. Disable aggregation. Oh yeah, it's still running the profiler. But in general, I've seen a couple of customers already who sell prescription glasses, and extensions that are available in the market for prescription glasses. They're usually utilizing some nasty database operations and doing a lot of loading loops, because they need to render, a lot of options.
Yeah.
Like this one, and then it triggers a lot of database
Yeah, that's
operations. So let's quickly just profile this page. Okay, so I expect it's gonna take a lot of time because I've seen profiles for similar pages before, and it's usually has a lot of database queries. Let's see how it goes for this one. Definitely large stack trace, because it takes some time to load the data. So yeah, not too bad, but definitely too much database operations here. Yeah, so here we can see again category, and here we have enhanced product options, 15 database queries. So you see it could have been actually a one database query, because I see they're already supplying option IDs here. So there's a lot of things that can be optimized from number of database queries. And in this page, we see that there is more queries that are executed kind of in a loop than on previous product page. On previous product page, the biggest abuser was category list. Here we have actually now 33 EAV attribute options, 20 times product. More product to category relation has been loaded. That is a sign that get category IDs gets called a lot for each product separately. And some product options, product website 11 times. So probably the product model has been loaded separately 11 times too. Yeah, so here we see 10 times product entity and catalog product entity again 10 times, so 20 times product entity table has been loaded separately by different extensions. 9 times inventory stock item, 9 times stock status by single product ID or by a list of product. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, super attributes. This was what we saw before. So when this options for prescription has been enabled, we see that there is this additional queries has been added to the page. So basically, in order to render this part, there is probably some additional products getting loaded in order to render this block.
There's quite a lot of options. I mean, even on the left, you can see there's more, like the lens type and the surfacing and the materials and colors.
Yeah, so when I click prescription lenses, but I can choose this one, right? So I have to... Oh, okay. So you have to click like that. Oh, but then I cannot... But then I cannot... Okay, so I have to click here, then I have to click one of the options, and only then I see it again. Okay. Hope it's easy to use for the end user. For me, it's a little bit confusing.
Cool.
Okay, so...
Yeah. We should wrap it up.
We should definitely wrap it up. It was a very long episode this time. We spent a lot of time in the beginning just to check what's happening during the Black Friday, right?
Yeah, that's hopefully those changes get pushed out and people who are doing high volumes or seeing ghost orders can get that fix.
Yeah, it just was a very stressful time. I can tell for sure. Okay, dear viewers, send us your web shops for review. We're always open for it. Also, feel free to email us at litl@magemojo.com or just DM us at our Twitter account. A load in a loop. Very simple. And till the next time, Eric.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too.